Hello, it's Friday, January 12th, and welcome to episode 286 of Fault Lines, the National Security Institute's podcast that gets you quickly up to speed 3 times a week on the national security and foreign policy debates shaking up America. I'm NSI Senior Fellow Morgan Vina, and I'm joined here today by NSI Founder and Executive Director Jamil Jaffer, Deputy Executive Director Jessica Jones, and Senior Fellow Lester Munson. Today, we are foregoing a conversation on the Middle East, but I will note the multinational strike on Houthi targets, which y'all should follow up on. But instead, we are coming closer to home and talking about Guyana, a country located just to the east of Venezuela on the South American mainland. On Tuesday, Venezuela's dictator, Nicholas Maduro, ordered the creation of a new state he dubbed Guyana Esequiba. This follows a referendum last Sunday, which saw Venezuelan voters approving the annexation of land from its neighbor. The land in question is the densely forested and oil-rich Esequiba region and amounts to 2/3 of Guyana's national territory. Venezuela has long claimed the land and has chosen to ignore a 125-year-old ruling by international arbitrators that set the existing boundaries. As part of the creation of this new state, Maduro announced the approval of oil, gas, and mining exploration licenses, ordering the state oil company to create a special department to manage the activities in the region, which are expected to start immediately. Maduro has also asked Venezuelan legislators to drop a law banning the hiring of any companies that have not worked with Guyana in the areas of dispute and gave companies currently in the region 3 months to vacate. Measures also include a census of residents in the region in order to determine whether they should be considered Venezuelan nationals. Les, you seem to know a thing or two about Guyana. What's going on here, and why does this matter to the United States?
Morgan, this is entirely about the Venezuelan election that will likely happen in the first half of this year between Nicholas Maduro and Maria Corina Machado, the opposition candidate. Right now, the Venezuelan opposition is united behind her. She's very popular. Maduro is very worried about this. So he's using this entirely fake international issue of the border with Guyana to kind of change the dynamic inside Venezuela with respect to their election. Now, let's be clear. Most Venezuelans do think they own most of Guyana. So this is a popular move inside Venezuela. They've always thought they owned the Essequibo region of Guyana, even though internationally, every single court has found in favor of Guyana on this question. So internationally, it's not a real issue. This whole move with companies and with the census, none of that will happen. This is entirely about the election that is going to happen in the next few months in Venezuela. Guyana has made a mistake here in kind of engaging in conversations directly with Venezuela about it. That only makes this look semi-legitimate. I think that's a mistake. It is good that the United States is showing a little force and allyship with Guyana. So is Brazil. But let's be clear here. This is entirely about the internal dynamics of Venezuela and Nicolas Maduro trying to hold on to power.
So, Jess, I want to get your take on this as well. It seems that Maduro is taking a page out of the Putin playbook. Why does Maduro think he can get away with this?
I mean, to Les's point, this is probably political posturing before what should be a presidential election year. But I mean, they might be calculating, weighing the US's engagement when it comes to Ukraine and Russia, when it comes to the conflict in the Middle East, to our, discussion of the South China Sea's tensions, and thinking we're bogged down, not focused, and then seeing, Putin successfully, I'll put in air quotes, do a land grab, that this might actually be an opportune time, that they haven't had this opportunity before. The world stage has looked very different. So they might be actually, preparing for something. And I think, the US is probably wondering, it lifted or it suspended sanctions in October, a broad array of sanctions, which led the way to what should be presidential elections this year. And so, at the time, it was like a successful use of economic tools, or some would say that. And so we're probably wondering now, like, okay, Jamil laughs at that, but some people would argue, hey, we got some things that we wanted, an election,
What do we get?
You've got opposition,
anything.
Party, like saying they are allowed to run, international observers. But we're thinking 1 month later, we see this referendum being called, and it's kind of like, great. So, whether the U.S. might make some statements when it comes to sanctions, that would up the ante a little bit more and pressure on Venezuela.
Mm-hmm. So, Jamil, turn to you. What do you think this means for the region? I mean, as Les noted, Brazil is quickly mobilizing troops at the northern border with Guyana. Clearly, no one wants war. Les says that this is election related. How seriously should we be taking this, do you think?
I think we should be taking this a lot more seriously. I think that this isn't just about election posturing. I think there's a larger effort going on here. I think what Venezuela sees, and this is sort of related to the Middle East in the sense that, just like with Iran, we hand them back sanctions, we give them back money, and they start acting badly. We don't do anything about it. Same thing. Venezuela's taking a page out of that playbook. They're like, look, we did this for years. The sanctions didn't work. We ignored them. We withstood them. Now the U.S. is collapsing on the sanctions policy. Let's go harass one of our neighbors. I actually think that the chances of Venezuela actually going into Guyana and taking their oil and robbing that from that sovereign nation, I think is high. And look, the Venezuelans also have something of a legitimate beef here in the sense that they were not part of this 1899 arbitral award. In fact, they weren't allowed to participate. And so their point is, look, we've always had a claim to Guyana. We weren't part of that thing. This thing needs to be decided. And, we're going to decide it with action on the ground. Now, I'm not saying that Venezuela should or has a legitimate claim to Guyana, but they have a beef. And since they think the U.S. is irrelevant, since our sanctions on Maduro didn't work, and then we collapsed and just gave him back all that money under the Biden administration, here we are. It's no surprise, once again, lack of U.S. leadership, lack of U.S. engagement, an inveterate policy position, and our adversaries take advantage. I actually worry that we're likely to see something of a military conflict between Brazil and Venezuela over Guyana, or just the robbing of Guyana's oil by Venezuela.
I sort of take the middle road here, whether this is election-related brouhaha or not. I think it's important for the United States to play a role here. I think the world is watching as the United States sort of shrinks from its leadership role in the region. And so this debacle is so close to home. I think it's important that the United States stand with Guyana. I understand that we have sent officials down there. We're running exercise. I think that all of that show of force is a positive thing, and it should continue. This is an issue that, quite frankly, isn't going to get a lot of publicity out there, but it nevertheless could have larger implications for the region. So with that said, that is a wrap. Thank you so much to Devlin Burning, Claude Jennings, and the NSI staff for their help in producing today's episode. We are off Monday for Martin Luther King Day, so join us again on Wednesday, January 17th, for our next episode of Fault Lines. Fault Lines is now on YouTube, so check out our channel for a video of today's episode. If you like what you heard, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe.